Supply and demand. These are two relatively big concepts in AP microeconomics, so let's look at them pretty closely. They each have a correlation to producers and consumers in a market, so let's make up our own market. We're going to make a company, we're going to call it Zeke's Pizzas because I like pizza. And let's focus first on the consumers, the buyers of the pizza. We can make a graph to represent their buyer's behavior. And what we can do is make the x-axis of the graph the quantity of pizza demanded, and we can make the y-axis the price of the pizza. Now, at a high price of pizza, not many people are going to want to demand it because it's too expensive. So a low quantity of pizza is going to be demanded. As the price decreases, the quantity of pizza demanded by buyers is going to increase as it gets cheaper and cheaper. And if we connect all these points together, we get what's known as the demand curve, which shows the attributes, the attitude, how buyers react to changes in the price. Now, this demand curve is normally relatively curved, but for our sake and for just the sake of making things simpler, we're going to make it just a straight downward sloping line. Now, we see that if we change the price of the pizza, we can change the quantity of pizza demanded, whether increasing or decreasing. But we can actually shift the entire demand curve based off of what's known as non-price determinants of demand. Now, that's just pretty much just a fancy way of saying things that affect how people demand or don't demand stuff that isn't based on price. Now, there's an acronym for this, and it's called INSECT. Now, INSECT stands for income, number of buyers, substitutes, expectations, complements, and tastes and preferences. A change in any of these ends up shifting the entire demand curve to the right or to the left. Let's take an example, tastes and preferences. Being healthy is a thing people like to do, so let's say suddenly everyone starts wanting to be healthy. It isn't just a small thing, everyone wants to be healthy. So that means that less people are going to want to eat pizza. So that means that at any given price, less quantity of pizza is going to be demanded. If you take that at every given price and you connect it, that ends up showing a decrease, a shift to the left in the demand curve. Another example is, let's say, everyone gets a raise, everyone gets more money, more income, an increase in income. What that ends up doing is saying that at any given price, people are able to demand and are going to demand more pizza. The quantity demanded of pizza is going to increase at every given price. Connecting that all up together, we find that the demand curve shifts to the right, what's known as an increase in demand. Now let's look at producers. We're going to make the similar graph to the one before, but this time the x-axis is going to be the quantity of pizza supplied, and the y-axis is still going to be the price of pizza. Now, if I charge a lot for pizza, if I have the price be very high, that means that with all the money that I get, I can make more and more pizza. I can buy more people, buy more ingredients, be able to get more pizza. So I'm able to supply more pizza. So at a higher price, I'm able to supply a high amount of pizza. As the price lowers, I'm not able to supply as much. So as the price lowers, the quantity of pizza supplied lowers. This results in an upward sloping curve known as the supply curve. Now, again, a shift in the price ends up shifting the quantity of pizza supplied, but we can shift the entire supply curve with what's known as non-price determinants of supply, which is basically the exact same thing as what we talked about with demand, but it affects the supply instead. This also has an acronym, and this acronym is ROTTEN. No, seriously, it's ROTTEN. Resource costs, other goods, technology, taxes and subsidies, expectations, and numbers of sellers. A shift in any of these will cause an increase or decrease in the supply, a rightward or leftward shift. An example is, let's say, technology. Let's say someone invents a new, faster way, more efficient way to make pizza, and it costs less. So that means that at any given price, I'm able to supply more pizza. So going through every given price and increasing the quantity supplied at that price, we're able to see that the supply curve increases. The supply shifts to the right. Now, let's look at another example. Let's look at, say, resource costs. If cheese becomes much more expensive, then that means that I'm not able to make as much pizza per any given price. So the quantity supplied decreases. So at any given price, the quantity supplied decreases. Connecting all those, and we see that the entire supply curve shifts to the left. That means a decrease in supply. So let's take the supply curve that we just are talking about and the demand curve that we were talking about earlier and put them together on one graph. Let's have the x-axis be quantity. Whether it's quantity demanded or supplied basically just depends on which line you're looking at. And we'll have the y-axis remain the price of the pizza. And what you can easily see based on just putting them together is that they intersect at a point. And this point is called the equilibrium point. That's because at that point, the price for that point means that the quantity demanded and supplied equal each other, which basically means that no one is left with extra pizza that no one's buying or with a desire for more pizza that isn't being fulfilled. It's in equilibrium. Now this equilibrium point can be shifted based off of, again, rotten insect for both of them. And speaking of rotten insect, there's actually a rotten insect on my camera. But let's get back into supply and demand. Rotten for supply and insect for demand could shift either one to the right or to the left. Let's take the supply curve to be constant and move the demand curve to the right or to the left, increase or decrease, and see what happens. Moving the demand curve to the right, we see that the equilibrium price increases and the equilibrium quantity increases as well. A decrease in demand would make the equilibrium price decrease and an equilibrium quantity decrease. Now let's take the demand curve, leave it as is, and we'll shift supply this time. An increase in the supply curve, a shift to the right in the supply curve, decreases the equilibrium price and increases the equilibrium quantity. Similarly, a decrease in the supply curve increases the equilibrium price and decreases the equilibrium quantity. Now, this is taking either a shift in the supply or a shift in the demand, but we can shift both of them at the same time just based off of rotten insect and see that, let's say, for example, the supply increases, shifts to the right, and the demand decreases, it shifts to the left. What we see is that the price definitely decreases, but the quantity doesn't necessarily increase or decrease. What happens with the quantity is called an indeterminate shift. We don't know whether the quantity increases or decreases. We don't know whether the equilibrium quantity increases or decreases until we know definitely how much of a shift happens in either direction. And that's just about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And like I said before, thanks for watching.